passed a law creating the Kampala Capital City Authority to take over the roles and responsibilities of the former Kampala City Council, KCCA. And basically what the framers of the law were thinking about was to create a hybrid of a local government that has a bit of a corporate personality, that is responsible to the central government, but also that has roles of service delivery in the capital city of Uganda. So this journey started in 2011. The first executive director of Kampala Capital City Authority was Miss Jennifer Musisi, who very many Ugandans remember. She was the first executive director. And at that time, there was both a political wing and a technical wing. So Kampala Capital City Authority is structured in an interesting way. Kampala Capital City Authority is under direct management or control of the central government. So we have a minister for Kampala and Metropolitan Affairs who oversees Kampala Capital City Authority, but we also have a Minister of State. So the Minister of State, these are people who give oversight to the ministry, the bigger Ministry of Kampala and Metropolitan Affairs, but also in particular, they pay attention to the activities of Kampala Capital City Authority. But also on the other hand, we have the Lord Mayor. And under the Kampala Capital City Authority Act, the Lord Mayor is the political head of the authority. So there's a Lord Mayor and a Deputy Lord Mayor who run their executive affairs through something called the City Executive Committee. Kampala Capital City Authority has a legislative organ also. It is called the Kampala Capital City Authority Council. It is headed by a speaker, it has a deputy speaker, and 54 councillors representing different constituencies in the 5 divisions of Kampala. Now, in the technical wing, which is headed by the executive director, there's over 2,000 staff spread over the 5 divisions of Kampala and is divided into 10 directorates. So it's a very big organization. Madam Jennifer Musisi was really a pioneer in many aspects because she was the first one to run with this institution in this new mold that I've just described. So most of the systems that were set up in terms of administration, in terms of human resources structuring, in terms of the processes of monitoring, service delivery, and everything that is required to make an institution run or an organization run were set up during Jennifer Musisi's time. We have to credit her for having done a very great job to build the structure to deliver services. And around that time, because we were testing the waters, there was a lot of friction between the technical wing and the political wing, because the political wing then was led by the current Lord Mayor, who is a well-known member of the opposition, and the technical wing was perceived to have been led by people who had been appointed by the president, and therefore the thinking was they are loyal to the central government. So there was that constant political tension, which really caused quite a bit of friction in those early years. But that said, Jennifer Musisi was able to achieve so much. I think Kampala recorded a lot of improvements to infrastructure. If you remember, in that time, the beautification of Kampala, the greens, the streets were beautiful. There was a lot of progress that was really, really helpful. But of course, it came at a cost. It came when you're beautifying the city, there is normally a cost. So the cost was you have to remove people from the streets, and so the vendors were crying. There was a huge outcry from especially the low-income earners who felt they are being pushed out of the city on the altar of beautifying. And so it was a mixed bag, but I have to say that that was the time when we saw Kampala city being run technically as a city. And a lot of progress was registered at that time. Of course, there was quite a bit of political tension between the technical wing and the political wing. But nevertheless, it set a new page and a new pace for development. Madame Jennifer Musisi resigned later on in about 2018, and when she resigned, she handed over the reins of power in the technical wing of KCCA to Engineer Chitaka, Andrew Chitaka. Engineer Andrew Chitaka had been serving as the Director of Engineering and Technical Services in KCCA, and now he takes over as ED. He was Executive Director for a period of about 2 years. That was from 2018 to about August 2020. He was acting as Executive Director all through this time, and basically what he did is really to build on what Miss Jennifer Musisi had already done. The story continued of infrastructure development, of transforming KCCA into a corporate entity, and being able to deliver on the day-to-day tasks of road construction, infrastructure development, drainage development, and running of markets, and all these kind of things. So after that time, then we went into the period of Dorothy Kisaka. Dorothy Kisaka came into office in August 2020. This was during the COVID time, and she served until September 2024, a period of about 4 years. I must say that Dorothy's first 2 years were a bit complicated because of COVID. There was a lot of disruption. We had lockdowns. Not many people were in the city. People were at home in the difficult COVID-19 days. And there was not so much going on in that period because, obviously, of the lockdown. Then after the lockdown, she came in with the engineer David Limbazi as her deputy. And the focus now was obviously still on service delivery, roads, keeping Kampala clean, the schools that we look after, the markets, and all these usual things. There are so many things that we look after as KCCA. I must say that at the time when Dorothy came in, Madame Dorothy Kisaka, the population of Kampala has been increasing over the years. As we speak right now, we have a population of about 4 million people. And of course, as the population increases, so are the pressures on the services, on the demand for public services. And the financial envelope or the budget for the city has not also been just increasing in tandem with the increasing pressure. So we had more people demanding for more services against a limited budget, or even sometimes a dwindling budget. So we saw a bit of some gaps in some services. There's been a lot of widespread outcry on roads and potholes and all these kind of things, which we are now really trying to work on, but there's still a lot of work to be done. But yes, in that period, it was punctuated by a lot of these challenges. Challenges in infrastructure, challenges with the drainage, challenges with the way we run markets and things like this. But all that has had a lot to do with limited resources, the COVID-19 disruptions that come with that, and some general challenges. Of course, the biggest problem that happened in this period, which even led, I think, to the change of leadership, was the very unfortunate incident that happened at Kiteezi in August 2024, when there was a garbage slide that cost us over 35 of our people who died in that garbage slide, and also a lot of property was destroyed. So many houses were submerged in the garbage, about I think over 35 houses. Then another almost 80 houses were submerged underwater because there was a water channel that was going through Kiteezi. When the garbage poured into it, it was blocked, and there was a backflow which destroyed so many homes. So that was a very, very unfortunate incident that happened earlier this year, and I think it is because of that kind of problem and its aftermath that led to the exit of Madame Dorothy Kisaka and her team and her deputy, and that's how I now come in as acting executive director. I came in at a very difficult time. I came in, I think, at one of the lowest moments in KCCA history. There was so much challenges. Of course, Kiteezi had just happened. So the first challenge was how to rescue the people of Kiteezi, those who had survived, how to help them get a livelihood Those who had survived, we had to work closely with the office of the Prime Minister, getting tents, getting medicines, get these people a chance to start up again. Then there was the question of having to rescue, to make sure that the danger at Kiteezi is brought down, mitigated. So you have to bring down the mountain of the garbage to come down, to build, to try and reduce, mitigate against the risk, against those who have survived, try to get people out of the buffer zone, which we thought was dangerous. We created a space of about 200 meters around the landfill to make sure people are safe. Then obviously we had to find a new place where to take the garbage, because Kampala produces 2,500 tons of garbage per day. So you can imagine that if you do not have where to take it, then you have a problem, because garbage is going to multiply so easily. Every day people are producing garbage. So we had now to try to work with the Entebbe municipality, the town council of Mukono, the town council of Kira, to try and see if they can help us find a place to keep the garbage. In the meantime, as we speed up processes to acquire new land, to build a modern landfill, and also try to see if we can use more modern technologies to deal with the garbage crisis. The vision and the mission of KCCA really is to provide quality services, public services and goods for the people of Kampala. In a nutshell, without going through difficult terminologies, basically ours is to make Kampala more livable, to make this city very attractive not only to live in it, but attractive to do business in it, and to make it a sustainable city, a city which will be enjoyable to live in even for years to come. So ours is to come up with one, day-to-day running, to keep the city in a healthy environment, to keep it very motorable, to be very livable and enjoyable, especially for people who work and live in this city, but also to be an attractive city to promote tourism into our capital city and into our country, because Kampala is a gateway. It's the sitting room of our country. When people come into our country, they begin with Kampala. So it is in our interest, it is the focus, it is the main mandate of us to try and keep this place beautiful and livable for all its residents. We do many things. For example, we manage physical planning for the capital city. Anybody who wants to build or to do any physical development in Kampala city has to seek the permission of our physical planning directorate to get permission, KCCA, to get permissions to build, development permission, building permissions and building permits, occupational permits. This we do to ensure that our buildings are built in line with agreed upon physical development plans, but also to make sure that the buildings that are being built are safe for habitation and they're not a danger to the people who are going to live in them. So we have the physical department which does that. We're also in charge of building roads and drainages in Kampala. That's a huge, huge engineering task. You can imagine Kampala has about 2,100 kilometers of road, and almost only about 30% of that is tarmacked. So we have a whole journey to tarmac a very big chunk of land, of roads, and also to maintain those that we have. We have not done enough yet. I know there's a lot of work to be done, but it's also a very, very expensive endeavor. Ugandans do not know how expensive roads are. I have to give it to government because they have tried to make huge, huge investments in roads, but building roads is very, very expensive. And Uganda is a country with so many priorities across the board. So even when we are trying to juggle, the government is trying to juggle priorities and allocate money, we cannot be able to resolve everything quickly. Our challenge now is to make sure that the monies that we get, we use them properly to get the best value for money. But let me also tell you that beyond engineering, we manage all the markets. We have about 17 public markets in Kampala. Hundreds of thousands of our people, especially the low-income earners, gain their livelihood from markets. So we take care of these markets. There are big markets like Central Kudemba and others, but there are 17 that we look after. So in these markets, we're basically keeping them hygienic, looking after them, running the day-to-day operations of the market, paying bills, making sure they are clean, removing garbage and all this kind of thing. But I also wanted to tell you that we also have a lot of work that we do in the area of public health, making sure that Kampala people are safe. So we have many health centers that are under KCCA. So we do vaccinations, we do outpatient care, we do all sorts of health care treatments, maternal care, and many other things. We have a department of education and social services. We have so many primary schools in Kampala, and so many universal secondary education schools and universal primary education schools that are under KCCA. All those are things that we do. We also collect revenues. Revenues in form of taxes, so we also collect money on behalf of government and remit it to government. So there's a lot of things that we do in this city, and in doing this work, we work with a team of over 2,000 staff. About half of those are on permanent terms, many of them are on temporary and casual terms, in order to deliver this very, very huge task. We have a challenge. I must say that Kampala, as I've told you, is a city of about 4 million people. And you can imagine in a city of about 4 million people, when we are envisaging how to police, because it's one thing to have laws, it's another thing to enforce those laws, to make sure that our people follow the laws. And there are two ways of making sure that laws are respected. One is you need to publicize those laws so people can get to know them. You need to advocate and get people to understand why it's important to follow the laws, the regulations, and the rules that we have set up, because these are rules which help all of us enjoy living in the city. But there are many people who do not want to follow the rules. So that means you need to have an enforcement mechanism. Now, we rely a lot on Kampala Metropolitan Police, but also the Kampala Metropolitan Police has a lot of work to do in other areas of policing. They don't just focus on KCCA work. So we are forced to build something called a law enforcement unit, which is manned by only 200 people. Now you can imagine having 200 people manning, enforcing bylaws that have application to about 4 million people. That is a drop in the ocean. Our law enforcement people have been accused severally, and sometimes correctly, of brutality, of high-handedness, of corruption, of extortion. These are matters that I have taken very seriously, and ever since I came into office, I set up a CID unit. It is manned by an assistant commissioner of police, and I'm glad that the Deputy IGP Magambo was able to send us some policemen to come and help us investigate some of these cases, because we want to really deal with this impunity. We are aware that some of our enforcement people have been extracting money to allow people to sell on the roads, do these things, and those who don't pay sometimes are mishandled. We have had those reports. We don't take them lightly. They are being investigated. And I'm thinking that moving forward, we are going to take a very, very stern action on these excesses. But that said, there's quite a number of enforcement personnel that are doing a good job, because you can imagine what it means to police 4 million people, and we have a force of only 200 people. That's so small, but even those 200 people have to work almost around the clock to ensure that there's a bit of order. Otherwise, this city would become completely unmanageable. Let me just explain to you how the complicated governance matrix of Kampala Capital City Authority, and why it requires a lot of political skill and negotiation and ability to balance different interests to have a successful governable city. This city has got a minister and a minister of state. It has got a Lord Mayor and a Deputy Lord Mayor. It has got 5 division mayors. It has got 5 town clerks. It has got 470 councillors. It has got an RCC and 5 deputy RCCs. It has got 18 assistant RCCs. It has got a huge security infrastructure that is composed of DSOs, of resource, of district police commanders, of division police commanders. All these people have a role to play in maintaining law and order and functionality of Kampala. So it requires a lot of negotiation and management of different interests that sometimes are overlapping. Now, this calls for a lot of tolerance, a lot of skill and negotiation to make sure everybody understands that ultimately our key objective is to deliver necessary goods and services, high quality services to our people. Now, to make it even worse is that you find that the city is led by the central government, that is led by, obviously, the NRM. And we are here to implement the NRM manifesto. Actually, this morning, the manifesto implementation unit was here to come and check with us on how we are operating with the manifesto. So we have an NRM manifesto that we are implementing, the social contract that brought NRM to power for these 5 years. And while you're doing it, you also realize that the leadership, the political leadership of the city is under an opposition leader who is opposed to to the government in power for political reasons. So sometimes there can be political tensions on that ground. Sometimes we may want to push a certain line, either we are following presidential directives or our ministers' directives, and they may not be in complete agreement with what the interests of the political leadership of the city is concerned, and therefore sometimes there's a bit of a clash on that. And also now you find that our political leadership is led by somebody from the FDC. Now I understand he has left the FDC to a new political outfit. But you find that the legislative arm is led by NUP, the speaker and the deputy speaker, and about 80% of the legislative arm is NUP. So you find that I am the ED, led with the ministers who are NRM, with the mayor who is FDC, or now Popular Front for Change, and then you have NUP leadership in the council. So those are all interests to juggle. But I think that what is important to note is that ultimately, whether you are NUP, whether you are FDC, whether you are NRM, whoever your voters are want services. Whoever your voters are want good roads, they want the garbage collected, they want clean streets, they want crime-free areas, they want to work in the markets and want to be able to access the markets. So we have got some common denominators. And I think if we focus on the common denominators, we can be able to forge some consensus on how to improve our city. It is not true that we get a big budget. That is a very big misunderstanding, which I've often had. Even before I came here also, I used to think like that. But I can tell you that we have got a strategic plan where we set out to say, what do we want to do for Kampala for 5 years? The strategic plan, I think, is coming to an end really soon. It has been running for 5 years. And in that plan, we had said that every year would need about 2 trillion shillings to be able to implement what we set out in the plan, because the strategic plan was costed. But let me tell you that out of those 2 trillion that we need per year, we have been getting about 400 billion. 400 billion out of 2 trillion is in the region of 20%. So if you are getting 20% of your budget, you cannot be able to resolve so many issues. I can give an example. For example, we get 10 billion shillings from the road fund annually to maintain roads. Anybody who knows about the cost of roads knows that 10 billion to maintain roads, the road network in Kampala, is very, very small. So it is not true that we have got a lot of resources. And even that 400 billion, you'll find that a big chunk of it is wages, paying the 2,000 employees that we have. So you find that we remain with very little in the form of development budget to really do new things. That's why I must thank the government of Uganda, which has been able to get us some loans, like the World Bank loan for the Greater Kampala Metropolitan Area, like the African Development Bank loans. It is these loans and grants that have helped us to be able to deal with the big infrastructure projects that we're running. Otherwise, given our government of Uganda revenue, this wouldn't be possible. So there is still a limitation, but I am sure with time, with more advocacy, with utilizing the limited resources that are given to us very well, maybe we'll make a case for more money coming to us. Yeah, so there has always been a complaint about corruption, not just in KCCA, but I think across very many public entities. Only at KCCA it has been emphasized there because we are really in the storm. Now, I don't want to dispute that. I think they say there is no smoke without fire. So what we need to do when we are tackling corruption is to strengthen the mechanisms to deal with it. And in this case, is one of the things that I've done was to I've told you that we've set up a CID unit to help with that, to do investigations internally, to make sure that we check corrupt tendencies within the institution. But beyond that, we have also revamped something called the Rewards and Sanctions Committee, so that people who are caught in doing some of these unethical practices can actually serve as an example to others. Because if there are no consequences when people do wrong things, then other people don't see any reason not to do the wrong things. You see, human behavior is driven by two things: the love for reward or the fear for punishment. So we have to take some actions, and we are going to be very strong on that. There's a Rewards and Sanctions Committee that has been newly constituted, that's going to be doing a lot of work, and I'm going to keep an eye on it closely. And number two, we have also set up an anti-corruption hotline. We shall be announcing it in the next couple of days, whereby members of the public can call anytime and complain about people who are extorting from them, people asking for money from them, people who are delaying to do what they're supposed to do. On top of this, I've set up also something called a monitoring unit. So you see, corruption can come in two ways. It can come from you need a service and somebody says, give me money. Or it can come from somebody supposed to do a service, delaying to do what they're supposed to do in the time they're supposed to do it, so that you, the person who needs the service, feels compelled to come and induce them to do their job. So we have now put a fixed time. There should be a fixed time in which something is done. For example, I came here and I heard that there are some people who are saying they have applied for permits, maybe for building permission or development control permission, and they take months to get responses. And because they're taking months to get responses, they end up building without permits. And when they build without permits, these people who come to enforce on them are compromised with bribes, and then the whole cycle continues. Now, we're saying, no, you cannot have somebody applying for something and it takes a month. There should be a limit. So a fixed time. This is the amount of time for applying for a permit. This is the amount of time for applying for development permission, for applying for occupational permit, etc., etc. And we're going to put this on our website so that public can know how much time do you need for such and such a service. So that in case there's a delay, or in case somebody is disturbing, you just report and action will be taken. So I agree that corruption is a big issue, but it is not insurmountable. I think with the right leadership, we can deal with it and get things back to order. When I came into office about 3 months ago, I called all my staff, 1,300 of them. They came and gathered under a huge tent. And I told them that we are going to focus on one thing. I said we are going to focus on something called Operation Restore Trust. Because our trust as a city administrative authority has waned over time. People have lost trust in our ability to work for them. People do not believe we are working in their interests. People do not believe we are committed to our tasks. They think we just came here to earn salaries. So and then trust is not something that you just ask for and get. Trust is earned. And the only way we can earn trust is by being able to deliver on the promises that we have made in the time we have set out to make them. So that with the time people can actually realize that there's been a change of attitude, there's been a change of commitments, and with time maybe we shall win them back. This is how we win the hearts and minds of the population. And I think while we are winning our people back, we will also win the confidence of government, which gives us resources. Because if they see us utilizing the resources that they've given us properly, then they will be motivated to even give us more resources, because if we deliver, then the government looks good. So I think this whole Operation Restore Trust, at the end of the day, will improve our standing with the public, but will help with service delivery, but will also, and importantly, improve the way government is viewed by the population. I would like to say that as KCCA, we are non-partisan, but we have to agree that KCCA, under the law, is governed by the central government, and we shall not shy away from the fact of saying that it is part of our responsibility to implement the NRM manifesto, because that's the social contract on which it got into power. But while we are doing that, we cannot ignore the oversight role of the Lord Mayor, because it's in the law. The law tells me the duties and functions of the ED, that I am responsible to the Lord Mayor, I am responsible to the minister, I am responsible to the council, and I am a law-abiding citizen. I am a lawyer by profession. I understand the rule of law, and I know the different roles of the different organs that oversee and all work with cases. My message to the public of Uganda is to realize that this city does not belong to any political party. It does not belong to the ruling party. It does not belong to the opposition parties. It belongs to all of us. And if we all work together to improve our city, it shall benefit all of us, even regardless of which political party is in power. So this is something, it's an attitude thing, which I think we can all choose. We can choose to have a positive attitude. We can choose to be more hardworking. We can choose to be cooperative and collaborate together, despite our political differences, to make sure that we have a better city that works for everyone. I'd like to thank the government for the responsibilities that they've given to us. I would also like to ask that they give us more resources, because I know we have to earn the trust to give us more resources, especially through how we utilize the resources that have been given to us. But we intend to do our best, but we'll need more resources. I also realize that there are some areas that are so underfunded, things like physical planning. You'll see something like physical planning with a very, very small budget. Yet physical planning is so central. You can't talk about urbanizing and improving a city if you don't have a very strong physical planning component. So I hope that with time we shall negotiate for more money to come in and we'll be able to deliver good services. But we want to pledge to the government of Uganda, especially our appointing authority, His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, the President of Uganda. We know that it is very central to your political vision to cause a socio-economic transformation of our country. And I believe to get a socio-economic transformation for our country, you need to work through a civil service that is ideologically focused and well-aligned, that is willing to implement this program very well. And we are here. We are committed, we are patriotic, and would love to see our country go forward. We can only promise to give it our best. I'd like to really thank our partners, who are many. We have very many key stakeholders who help us. The Ministry of Finance is very critical, the Auditor General's Office, the Attorney General's Chambers that make sure that everything that we do is in line with the law. But obviously, I want to thank UBC. UBC, in a special way, has always been televising our shows and putting the focus on not just KCCA, but on development initiatives in the country, which is very, very positive. I'd like also to encourage other media houses to follow the example of UBC. But I also want to thank our international development partners. And there's so many NGOs that have come to work in the space where interested people, NGOs working with elderly women, with children, with youth, with street kids. We really appreciate your work. And I believe that the government will never have enough funds to do everything. We'll have to rely a lot on our development partners, be they in the civil society, be they international development. Let us all work together and make our city a beautiful, beautiful place. I would like to use this opportunity, fellow Ugandans, that we are now coming to the end of the year. This is normally a time when everybody wants to spend some time with their loved ones, to spend time with family, to enjoy the Christmas cheer. And also remember that Christmas is, the reason for Christmas is really the birth of our Lord Jesus Christ. For you Christians, you know what this means. So let us remember that love is central to this whole thing. Let's love our neighbors and try our best to make our lives and those of our neighbors better through the things that we do. Enjoy, and I really, really wish you a very happy and prosperous New Year.
UBC, inspiring Uganda.
Hello, people of God. I'm Reverend Dr. Arthur Magezi, and I have a series of teachings entitled, I Am a Soldier. These teachings are on spiritual warfare and deliverance. Thank you again for